Galactic Standard Record, Confederation Archives Diplomatic Assessment, Species Classification 7629H Humans. Let me tell you about the day the universe collectively underestimated humanity. And I mean monumentally, catastrophically underestimated them. The Tri-Stellar Confederation had been managing interstellar politics for roughly 3,000 standard cycles. They'd absorbed, subjugated, or diplomatically neutered over 217 sentient species. Humanity wasn't even a blip on their expansive radar, just another primitive species mucking about on a tiny blue-green planet in an unremarkable spiral arm. Commander Zrel of the Valaxian Diplomatic Corps had personally reviewed the human file. His six-fingered hand had flipped through the datapad with a mixture of boredom and mild contempt. Barely space-capable, he'd reported to the Central Council. Fractured political systems, limited interplanetary exploration, primitive weapons technology. Recommendation, continued observation, minimal engagement. What Zrel didn't know, what none of them knew, was that humanity had been listening. Not just listening, but meticulously analyzing every single transmission, every scrap of data that drifted through their local space. While the Confederation viewed them as potential future vassals, humans were conducting their own quiet research. The first warning should have been their adaptability. Humans had survived ice ages, global pandemics, multiple extinction-level events, and their own spectacularly destructive technological adolescence. They'd gone from horse-drawn carriages to nuclear technology in less than a century. They'd weaponized everything from sticks to mathematics. But the Confederation saw none of this. They saw a species that argued constantly, consumed ridiculous amounts of caffeine, and spent more time creating internet memes than developing interstellar technology. What they didn't see was the quiet, ruthless efficiency brewing beneath the surface. Admiral Elena Rodriguez read the Confederation's latest diplomatic assessment and allowed herself a tiny, dangerous smile. The report categorized humans as technologically immature and unlikely to pose significant galactic resistance. She knew better. The massive shipyards in lunar Mars and the Jovian orbital complexes had been working triple shifts. Experimental quantum drive prototypes were being stress-tested. Weapon systems that made the Confederation's current arsenal look like children's toys were being calibrated. Humanity wasn't just preparing a response. In Kisation, they were preparing a statement. And when they finally decided to speak, the galaxy was going to listen. Commander Zrel would learn soon enough that underestimating humans was the most dangerous mistake any civilization could make. The thing about being underestimated is that it's the perfect camouflage for preparation. While the Confederation's diplomatic corps was busy dismissing humanity as a footnote in galactic history, Admiral Elena Rodriguez was transforming that footnote into a goddamn epic. Her officer Spartan Command Center, nestled deep within the Olympus Mons military complex, wasn't decorated with medals or traditional military memorabilia. Instead, massive holographic displays tracked everything from quantum communication networks to the most minute details of experimental weapons systems. "They think we're playing with toys," she muttered, reviewing the latest quantum entanglement communication prototype. The system could transmit encrypted data across multiple star systems faster than the Confederation could blink. "We're not just building weapons. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of engagement." Humanity's technological leap wasn't a sudden burst of inspiration. It was the result of decades of covert research, international cooperation driven by the shared understanding that survival meant innovation. The global conflicts that once tore nations apart had been replaced by a singular focus, preparing for a universe that didn't know they were coming. The quantum drives developed in the joint Mars-Lunar research facilities were nothing short of revolutionary. Where Confederation ships relied on massive energy expenditures for faster-than-light travel, human engineers had discovered quantum tunneling techniques that made traditional propulsion look like medieval transportation. Their weapon systems were equally impressive. The Mark V graviton disruptor developed by a team of scientists who looked more like they belonged in a coffee shop than a military research facility could theoretically collapse entire ship shields without firing a single traditional projectile. But technology was only part of the equation. The human military had learned something the Confederation had forgotten. Adaptability was the true weapon of any advanced civilization. Rodriguez pulled up personnel files, each representing a carefully selected warrior-scientist hybrid. These weren't just soldiers. They were problem solvers, strategists who could reprogram a combat AI while simultaneously conducting first contact negotiations. Take Lieutenant Marcus Chen, for example, astrophysicist, former mixed martial arts champion, and holder of 3 separate patents in quantum communication technology. The kind of person who could calculate orbital insertion trajectories while brewing the perfect espresso. Or Commander Aisha Okonkwo, whose dissertation on xenobiological adaptation had been published simultaneously in both scientific journals and military strategy publications. She spoke 6 languages, 3 of them alien, and could field-strip a next-generation plasma rifle blindfolded. The Confederation's intelligence reports missed a critical detail. Humanity wasn't just preparing for conflict. They were preparing to understand, to adapt, to survive. "They think we're reactive," Rodriguez said to her AI assistant, a dry humor threading her voice. "They have no idea we've been proactive for decades." The holographic displays flickered, revealing a constantly updating network of quantum communication relays, stealth satellites, and distributed research nodes. Each represented not just a technological achievement, but a strategic advantage. Somewhere in the vast darkness between star systems, humanity was waiting, patient, prepared, completely underestimated, and that was exactly how they wanted it. The Global Unity Council wasn't a traditional government meeting. It was more like a high-stakes poker game where the ante was humanity's entire future. Representatives from every major nation and orbital colony sat around a circular table designed to eliminate any hint of hierarchical positioning. No head of the table meant no single power could claim dominance. This was humanity's first truly unified strategy session. "We have approximately 6 standard months before the Confederation realizes we've detected their long-range surveillance networks," announced Dr. Imani Oke, Earth's chief strategic analyst. Her dark eyes scanned the room with a predator's intensity. "Our window of opportunity is precisely calculated." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair, a holographic display rotating slowly between the council members. Each projection showed potential invasion routes, quantum communication relay points, and strategic planetary defense configurations. "The key," she interjected, "isn't just to surprise them. It's to humiliate them so thoroughly they'll think twice about ever considering humanity as a potential conquest." Secretary of Interstellar Affairs Robert Yamamoto, a man who looked more like a retired high school history teacher than a global strategist, cleared his throat. "Our primary objective isn't total war. It's establishing a clear, unequivocal message of our capabilities and independence." The plan was elegantly simple and devastatingly complex. Humanity would launch a precision strike that demonstrated technological superiority without triggering a prolonged conflict. They would show their teeth without necessarily biting. Lieutenant Chen, now standing near a complex tactical display, outlined the initial deployment strategy. "We'll use a distributed attack model. Multiple small strike teams across different sectors, synchronized with quantum communication protocols. By the time they can coordinate a response, we'll have vanished." The room buzzed with a peculiar energy. This wasn't fear. This was anticipation. Commander Okonkwo added her analysis. "Their fleet communication systems rely on linear transmission protocols. We can introduce quantum entanglement disruption that will make their entire command structure look like a confused ant colony." Rodriguez appreciated the poetry of their approach. Humanity had spent centuries being underestimated, overlooked, considered primitive. Now they would transform that perception in a single, calculated moment. The orbital shipyards were already primed. Thousands of vessels ranging from sleek quantum interceptors to massive command carriers waited in perfect, silent readiness. Each ship represented years of covert research, technological innovation that defied conventional understanding. "Budget allocation?" asked Yamamoto. Dr. Okiki smiled, a razor-sharp expression that suggested she'd been waiting for this question. "We've redirected funds from multiple global defense programs, military spending, corporate R&D budgets, even redirected portions of entertainment and social media infrastructure investments. The total cost was astronomical, but the return on investment, humanity's freedom. The final decision came down to a unanimous, silent vote. No hands raised, no formal counting, just a collective understanding that this was humanity's moment. Rodriguez stood, her uniform crisp, her demeanor a perfect blend of calculated calm and barely contained excitement. Deployment begins at 0300 hours, coordinated across all global and orbital command centers. Her final briefing was succinct. They think we're weak. They think we're divided. They are about to learn how spectacularly wrong they are. As the council dispersed, an electric tension filled the air. This wasn't just a military operation. This was humanity's declaration to the universe: we are here, we are ready, and we will not be overlooked. The countdown to first contact had begun. The first shot wasn't fired. It was more of a cosmic mic drop. The Commander Zrel of the Volaxian Confederation fleet watched in stunned disbelief as his primary battle network simply disappeared, not destroyed, not damaged, completely erased, like someone had hit the universal delete button. Status report. He bellowed, his six-fingered hands scrambling across communication panels that now displayed nothing but static and confused error messages. The human response came not with a traditional weapon, but with what could only be described as technological terrorism. Each Confederation battle group found itself simultaneously experiencing total systems failure. Quantum communication networks collapsed. Navigation systems went haywire. Weapon arrays powered down mid-charge. Lieutenant Marcus Chen, sitting in the control room of the USS Prometheus, couldn't help but grin. "We're not destroying their systems," he explained to a junior communications officer. "We're basically giving them the most expensive digital wedgie in galactic history." The human strategy was beautiful in its simplicity and horrifying in its execution. Instead of conventional warfare, they had transformed the Confederation's own technological infrastructure into a weapon against itself. Take the first Volaxian dreadnought, the Stellar Dominance. A massive vessel that had conquered dozens of star systems, now reduced to floating space debris because its own AI security protocols had been turned into a recursive logic trap. Its computer systems were now locked in an endless loop of self-diagnostic procedures, effectively lobotomizing the entire ship. "It's like watching a toddler try to fight a quantum computer," Chen muttered. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication channel. Minimal kinetic engagement. Maximum psychological impact. Make them understand that we're not just another species to be catalogued and dismissed. The human fleet moved with a precision that defied traditional military doctrine. Where Confederation ships moved in rigid, predictable formations, human vessels danced quantum drives, allowing instantaneous repositioning that looked more like choreography than combat. Commander Ayesha Okonkwo managed the tactical overlay, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "They're so used to being the biggest predator in the room," she said. "They never considered someone might rewrite the rules of the game." Each human strike was calculated to humiliate rather than destroy. The communication arrays were temporarily hijacked to broadcast everything from classic rock music to stand-up comedy routines. Entire Confederation battlegroups found their navigation systems reprogrammed to spell out sarcastic messages in their flight paths. One particularly memorable moment occurred when a human quantum interceptor no larger than a traditional fighter craft managed to temporarily take control of a massive Confederation battle cruiser. The ship was then made to perform an elaborate aerial ballet, spinning and twirling through asteroid fields with a grace that would make professional dancers weep. Israel could only watch in mounting horror. This wasn't just a battle. This was a comprehensive dismantling of everything the Confederation believed about technological superiority. "They're not fighting," he whispered to his second-in-command. "They're playing with us." And they were. Humanity had transformed warfare into something between a technical demonstration and elaborate performance art. By the engagement's conclusion, not a single human vessel had been seriously damaged. Not a single human life had been lost. The Confederation, however, had lost hundreds of ships, thousands of personnel, and something far more precious, their sense of galactic superiority. Lieutenant Chen's final commentary summed up the entire encounter perfectly. "I believe," he said, adjusting his headset with a smirk, "we've just sent a rather strongly worded message to the universe." The message was clear. Humanity had arrived, and they were definitely not taking applications for potential conquerors. The Confederation's Emergency Council looked less like a strategic meeting and more like a collective nervous breakdown. "They're not behaving like a proper species," screamed Grand Arbiter Krell, his tentacle-like appendages flailing in pure frustration. "Civilizations are supposed to have rules." Humanity's response, it seemed, was to laugh in the face of those rules. Within 72 standard hours of the initial engagement, the entire Confederation communication network had been systematically dismantled, not through destruction, but through an unprecedented form of technological sabotage that was equal parts brilliant and absurd. Each time the Confederation attempted to re-establish communication protocols, human operatives would introduce increasingly ridiculous security breaches. One entire battle group found their primary communication channels hijacked to broadcast what appeared to be ancient Earth comedy routine stand-up specials from the early 20th century that left alien communications officers simultaneously confused and inexplicably entertained. "Is this some form of psychological warfare?" asked Diplomatic Coordinator Vex, watching a holographic recording of a comedian making jokes about airline food while simultaneously demonstrating how to completely override their most secure communication, but encryption. The answer was a resounding yes. Admiral Rodriguez had designed their approach with surgical precision. This wasn't just about military victory. This was about demonstrating that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology, it was adaptability, creativity, and an absolutely brutal sense of humor. Take the incident with the Quantum Relay Station Beta 9. A massive Confederation communication hub designed to be impenetrable. The human response. They didn't destroy it. They reprogrammed its entire communication matrix to only broadcast dad jokes and deliberately mistranslated pop culture references. Why did the quantum physicist cross the galaxy? It became an actual encrypted message that took 3 senior Confederation cryptographers a week to decode. The punchline: to prove wave-particle duality is no joke. Lieutenant Chen had become something of a legendary figure. His ability to turn complex technological warfare into what could only be described as an elaborate, galaxy-wide pranking system was unprecedented. "We're not just fighting," he explained to his team. "We're educating them. They've spent thousands of years believing technological superiority meant rigid, predictable systems. We're showing them that true innovation is about flexibility, creativity, and occasionally being absolutely ridiculous." The Confederation's military leadership was experiencing what could only be described as an existential crisis. Their entire strategic model, built on hierarchical control and predictable technological advancement, was being systematically dismantled by a species that seemed to view warfare as performance art. Commander Okonkwo's psychological warfare protocols were particularly ingenious. Instead of traditional communication disruption, human operatives would introduce subtle, almost imperceptible changes into Confederation systems. Navigation algorithms would suddenly produce slightly incorrect calculations. The communication encryptions would have microscopic irregularities that would drive perfectionist alien technicians absolutely mad. "It's like we're gaslighting an entire galactic civilization," she remarked, a wry smile playing across her lips. The turning point wasn't a singular moment of dramatic conflict. It was a slow, deliberate demonstration that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons, but its capacity to transform any system technological, communicative, or strategic into something completely unexpected. Grand Arbiter Krell, watching another communication channel get hijacked to broadcast what appeared to be a tutorial on making perfect chocolate chip cookies, finally understood the terrible truth. Humanity wasn't just a species to be conquered. They were a force of nature that refused to be categorized, controlled, or comprehended. And they were just getting started. The dust settled across the quantum communication networks, and the universe held its collective breath. Humanity had done more than win a conflict, they had redefined the very concept of interstellar engagement. The Tri-Stellar Confederation's Emergency Council looked like a gathering of shocked bureaucrats who had just discovered their entire administrative structure was built on the quicksand. A Grand Arbiter Krell, whose tentacle-like appendages were now drooping in total defeat, could only stare at the holographic displays showing humanity's systematic dismantling of their technological superiority. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood before the Global Unity Council, her report succinct and laden with a dry humor that could cut through starship hulls. "We didn't just send a message," she said. "We sent a goddamn manifesto." The numbers were staggering. 0 human casualties, hundreds of Confederation ships rendered completely inoperable. An entire galactic communication network transformed into what could only be described as the universe's most elaborate comedy routine. Lieutenant Marcus Chen's quantum disruption protocols had become the stuff of legend. His team had essentially turned warfare into a combination of high-stakes programming and performance art. The Confederation's most secure systems had been turned into digital playgrounds, their serious military infrastructure reduced to blinking confusion. The diplomatic aftermath. The Confederation's diplomatic response was predictably bureaucratic. They attempted to draft formal protest documents, only to find that their communication channels were now mysteriously programmed to autocorrect serious statements into increasingly ridiculous metaphors. "We formally protest" would suddenly become "we formally protest the absolutely stunning demonstration of technological superiority that makes our previous assumptions look like a toddler trying to explain quantum mechanics using finger paintings." Commander Aisha Okonkwo couldn't help but laugh. "We're not just defending ourselves," she remarked. "We're trolling an entire galactic civilization." A warning to the universe. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Not now. Not ever. Secretary Yamamoto's final statement to the Confederation was both a warning and a cosmic mic drop. "Consider this our introduction to galactic politics. We don't follow your rules. We write our own." The epilogue wasn't just about this singular conflict. It was a promise, a declaration that humanity had arrived on the interstellar stage, not as a potential conquest, but as a force to be reckoned with. Commander Zrel, watching the final transmissions, realized something fundamental had changed. This wasn't just a defeat. This was the universe being put on notice. Humanity was here, and they were absolutely, unapologetically unpredictable. Galactic Standard Record Annotation, humanity's first interstellar engagement, classified absolutely legendary.